All right, welcome to the second part of Lecture 9. I am Dr. Muhammad Ali and I am continuing the previous lecture that I started on knowledge spillovers. And in this second part of the lecture, I will slightly deviate from the topic of foreign direct investment and talk about diversification and different types of variety. So let's start without further ado. So types of spillovers, we'll talk about agglomeration, why clustering of economic activity occurs. So the concept of the benefits of diversification starts from this notion of agglomeration, and then we can extend it to the macroeconomic context of the countries, and then we can see if variety really works. So I'll go to the paper later on, but let's understand what diversification means and what kind of potential benefits it can gives us. Okay. So before I go to the paper, I would like to discuss some of the concepts of agglomeration, different types of spillovers, and the constructs of economic diversity indices and what they mean when we talk about the structure of the economy, innovation, human development, economic growth, and so on. So in this lecture, first I will discuss different types of agglomeration. Then we'll discuss what unrelated and related variety mean. And then we will discuss a paper, my recent paper, on economic diversification and its implication on human development. So that's the plan for this lecture. So basically, these are the four different angles through which you can look at agglomeration. Number one, increasing returns to scale because of the cost efficiencies when you're serving large markets. A very simple concept. External economies available to all local firms within the same sector, that is called localization economies. Then we have external economies because of the high density and urban size of the location in which the firm is operating. That is called urbanization economies. And then we have very interesting concept by Jane Jacobs, developed in 1969, that talks about the types of agglomeration economies resulting from the variety of different sectors, not specialization but variety. These are the different benefits of knowledge spillovers in agglomeration economies. And then when we continue along these lines, then we find actually two different strands of literature on the benefits of agglomeration. So one is developed by, if we want to draw a line between the two, one is developed by Marshall, Arrow, and Romer. The other strand is was started by Jane Jacobs, then developed into something that is called Jacobs externalities. We'll talk about it later on. So Marshall, Arrow, and Romer externalities talk about specialization. So MAR externalities basically talk about intra-industry knowledge spillovers. When regionally firms are located close to each other and also they are from the similar sectors, then there is a high frequency of knowledge sharing, and it can come up, it can result in a high level of innovation. So knowledge spillovers are much higher according to MAR externalities when there is a specialization, not diversification. And then there is a concept of tacit knowledge and geography. So one of the benefits of having all these firms together in one location, and of course from similar industries as well, as far as MAR externalities is concerned, they can learn from each other. When you are located together in close proximity to each other, then you can meet more frequently, and tacit knowledge transfer is also very easy. So that's why this concept of agglomeration works very well. When you are in the similar industries and you can meet frequently face to face, then it's not only codifiable knowledge but also tacit knowledge that actually gets transferred. And then we have Jacobs externalities or Jacobian externalities developed by Jane Jacobs on your right. She argued that knowledge spillovers are more important when they are in complementary industries rather than similar industries. So ideas developed in one industry can also be applied in other industries. That's what the Jane Jacobs argued. This is a type of agglomeration, Silicon Valley. Many firms, same industry or similar industries working together in close proximity. There is high level of labor mobility and also knowledge exchange. So this is a perfect example of how agglomeration would work. In MAR externalities would be more generally applied here as compared to Jacobs externality. Similarly, in Hollywood, there are producers, actors, musicians, directors, costume designers, writers, all these people located in close proximity in one area in particular. So you can access all different types of skills required to make a movie in this area. So there is a benefit of co-locating with the other individuals, other players in the field. Jacobs externality can be looked at from the lens of diversification, and you can talk about MAR externalities as something that argues in favor of specialization. When we talk about diversification, then there are two different types of diversification recently developed in 2007 actually. Kind of rediscovered this notion of related and unrelated variety by Franken. Related variety measures diversification in related industries. Unrelated variety measures diversification in unrelated industries. When you talk about related variety, it kind of captures Jacobs' notion of diversification. But when you talk about unrelated variety, it captures the resistance against economic shock. Think of it this way. If a country is engaged in agricultural production and a large share of the GDP comes from agricultural production, 80% for example, and there is a flood, for example, and a countrywide flood that kind of destroys everything and agricultural production goes down to zero. What happens then? So 80% of the economy is affected by that. So on contrary, if there is a country that produces many different types of products, automobile, agriculture, minerals, machinery, and all these kind of different types of products, then if one sector is hit by natural factors or something else, then entire economy is not affected, only one portion is affected. So the variety actually guards you against economic shocks. So this table summarizes this concept. So if there is a specialized industry structure, then MAR externalities are applicable there. In diversified industry structure, Jacobs externalities are applicable there. Localization externalities in terms of intra-industry learning is more applicable in MAR externalities when specialized industry structure is there. And inter-industry learning is more prevalent in Jacobs externalities when diversified industry structure is there. And when you extend the concept of diversity, then we have two different types of variety, related variety and unrelated variety. So recent study by Castaldi in 2015 found out that when there is unrelated variety, the interactions or knowledge flows are less frequent because the two industries are complementary but not similar. So knowledge flows are less frequent, but when they happen, they result in radical types of innovation. So they kind of change the way things are done. As we saw in the example of Henry Ford and meat processing plant, right? So related variety, when you're following related variety, then there is more frequent interaction between different firms, but the resulting innovation is incremental in nature. Okay, so this is the general finding of this paper. In a specialized industry structure, similar to related variety, there is also a possibility more often of incremental innovation than radical innovation. Radical innovation can happen, but less frequent as compared to incremental innovation. When you talk about the impact of related and unrelated variety on regional growth, we are not going to talk about regional growth in the paper that we are going to cover later on. But this is in previous papers of Franken and other co-authors, you will find very often they talk about how related and unrelated variety affects regional growth, because they talk about agglomeration, co-location of firms with each other. So it makes more sense to talk about sub-regions. And unrelated variety affects regional growth after significant lag as compared to related variety, which has immediate effect. Knowledge recombination is easier in related variety as compared to unrelated variety. This is what we have already talked about before. And then there is a concept of relatedness by Hidalgo. Hidalgo's measure does not measure variety. So I'll talk about how to measure variety later on. You'll understand if an economic structure is specialized or diversified based on the composition of different sectors. Hidalgo's measure does not do that. It only measures the level of relatedness among different sectors that a country is operating in. Okay, so this is a major difference. That's why these two indices are usually confused with each other, and they should not be. Okay. So this is what in this slide, if I do a good job, then after this slide you should easily understand what a specialized structure looks like and what diversified economic structure looks like. So let's start by looking at this graph on the left with the green bars. This is a specialized economic structure. Why? Because 85% of the production in this economy is of vegetables. So this economic structure is specialized in producing vegetables only. Motor vehicles 5%, medicines 10%, and that is all. So a specialized economic structure means that the production of a country is concentrated in one or two big sectors, and other sectors are only taking small shares. So that is a definition of a specialized economic structure. Diversified economic structure, on the other hand, which you can see on the right with blue bars, it tells you that this economy on the right hand side has almost equal shares of production in three different sectors: vegetables, motor vehicles, and medicines. And because these shares are relatively equal, they are guiding against economic shocks. Also, they measure that economy is not dependent on one sector. So there are the economic production of a country is concentrated almost equally in all three sectors. So this is a hypothetically artificially created scenario. Of course, you'll not find anything similar in the real world data. I will show you some graphs later on, but this is an example to show how a specialized structure would look like, the one that is shown on the left, how a diversified structure would look like, the one shown on the right. So if the economic production is concentrated in one sector or one or two big sectors, it is a specialized structure. And if economic structure is evenly distributed in different sectors, then it is a diversified economic structure. Okay, I hope it is clear now. Then within diversification, now we have to look at related and unrelated variety. Look at these two sectors right here. So I have intentionally taken two different sectors to different codes from SITC classification that are very dissimilar to each other. So 42 is vegetable fats and oils, 78 is road vehicles. So of course these two are very different from each other. They are not similar at all, right? So if you measure variety at this level, so let's talk about so remember this graph right here. So if you measure if we have vegetable fats and oils and road vehicles, if you put them vegetable fats and oil here and road vehicles here, then we similarly vegetable oil here and road vehicles here, then you are measuring diversification or specialization in unrelated sectors, because these sectors are not related to each other. Okay, but if you're measuring diversification at this level within these sectors, so fixed vegetable fats and oils soft, fixed vegetable fats and oils other than soft. So these are two different sectors, subsectors, but very similar to each other. These are related to each other, right? So if you measure variety at this level, at 3-digit level, then you will measure related variety because it is measured at the level which is related to each other. Similarly, if you measure variety here at this level, 781, 782, 783, these three sub categories are very much related to each other. That's why the resulting variety will be related variety. Okay, so related variety at this level, unrelated variety at this level. So this is measured at 2-digit and 3-digit, but you can also measure it at 5 or 4. Okay, so Franken's paper is measured at 5-digit level. We are showing it at 2 and 3-digit level. Okay, let's look at some export structures, comparative Pakistan with other countries, China and USA. So you can see that the big block here, this green thing, all this big block here is textile. Pakistan is producing textile, exporting. This is for export. And another big block is right here, agricultural products, and some small blocks, minerals, stones, chemicals, machinery, and so on. ICT is also not very small. ICT services accounting for approximately 17-18%, but the major share is this textile thing. So you can see that Pakistan is kind of a specialized structure in 3 sectors: agriculture, mostly in textile, then agriculture and ICT. Okay. Now, when you look at United States, you see that of course ICT is big, but look at these blocks. They are not very small, are they? This one, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one. They are almost similar sizes. So the distribution is very similar. So kind of a diversified structure. Apart from this ICT big block here, there is a kind of diversification going on here. So they are. This graph shows you that United States is engaged in various different types of production sectors, and this kind of guards against economic shocks, and also helps in knowledge spillovers across industries. Then we have China. China also has a kind of a diversified economic structure. These 3 blocks are taking most of the space, and then some smaller sectors right here. So compared to Pakistan, these 2 countries have relatively speaking a much more diversified economic structure. Of course, this is in terms of percentages. It does not compare the total amount of exports. So right now you can see up here is $2.3 trillion. USA is $2.35 trillion, and Pakistan is $31 billion. So not comparable at all. But in terms of percentages, still at this high level, still $2.73 trillion Chinese exports, they have managed this kind of diversification here. So this kind of this tells you how much diversified their economic structure is. Now I'll quickly go through this paper on economic diversification and human development in South Asia. What we have done is we have applied the concepts of related and unrelated variety, and we have seen whether human development is affected by the economic structure. So Sen's concept of human development argues that human beings are not means of production, they are also ends of economic activity, and the concepts of GDP per capita or GDP do not really capture the human development concept. Besides, Easterlin paradox states that increase in income increases happiness, but after reaching certain threshold, it does not increase further happiness at all. So it's not always directly correlated with happiness is not always directly correlated with income. So as an alternative, human development index was created, which was combination of income, education, and health, and resulting index was called human development index. Higher the index is, higher is the human development in an economy. So basically, GDP and human development can also be correlated. So human development can affect GDP and GDP can affect human development. It is shown in this diagram. This is not the main purpose of this video, so I'll just leave it here. This is taken from this is a simplified version of figure 1 in Suri et al. 2011. If you are interested, I can give you the link as well, but I just wanted to show you that these two concepts are of course linked with each other through different channels, but we are not going to go through this. Okay, so diversification and human development transmission channels could be through increase in factor productivity through knowledge spillovers. So the impact of knowledge spillovers on human development could be negative, because if productivity increases, you need less level of input to produce the same level of output. So unless the total output also increases, then diversification, then knowledge spillover, increase in knowledge spillovers and increase in factor productivity would have a negative effect on human development. Then we have a second box here, preference for variety. So if existing level of variety is low, then increase in diversification would increase human development, because humans prefer high level of variety. But there is also non-linear effect. So if variety is already at very high level, further increase in variety would have a negative effect on human development. Then there is a transmission channel of diversification through human development and then there is a effect of diversification on human development through opportunities, entrepreneurship, and employment. So if diversification increases employment and increases entrepreneurial activities, generally speaking, it will also increase human development. But what happens is that if they are increasing new sectors, creating new sectors, and not obsoleting the previous one, so the concept is called creative destruction. So if there is a creation of new industry with the destruction of previous one, then this is the effect is not very clear. It could be negative or positive. But if there are new sectors being created, then definitely the effect will be positive, because there will be more economic opportunities, more employment, and so on. So I don't have to repeat this. We have already talked about it, unrelated and related variety. So you can have a look at it from a different angle, different examples, but same story. I've mentioned it before. So this is the econometric model. We have human development index as a function of social expenditure, social sector expenditure, GDP per capita, diversification indices, human capital, and inequality measures and poverty measures. But inequality and poverty measures were not available for longer period of time for many countries. So poverty and Gini coefficients were not included. Poverty is not mentioned here, but it was mentioned in the paper where this model was taken from. So Gini coefficient and poverty were taken out of the equation later on because of lack of data. So this paper is based on 6 South Asian countries. Period covered in this analysis is from 2000 to 2011. Entropy and indices are used to calculate related and unrelated variety. 3-digit level for related variety, 2-digit level for unrelated variety. So just to give you an idea about how the indices look like for the initial period and the final period. So diversification indices could be calculated from 96 onwards, but since the rest of the data was available from 2001, so that's why we had to restrict our analysis to 2001 to 2011. So you can see here that Nepal increased related variety over time significantly. In Maldives, related variety has gone down. In Pakistan, related variety was actually the highest in 96. It's only below Bangladesh right now. So Bangladesh has highest level of related variety right now, increased as compared to 1996. In India as well, it has gone down a little bit. But in terms of unrelated variety, India had high level of unrelated variety and it has kept that position. Pakistan has increased unrelated variety over the years, Nepal also, but in Bangladesh it has gone down. So related variety has increased in Bangladesh, but unrelated variety not so much. So this is the regression table, a simple one regression table. It shows you that from model 1 to 7 we have gradually added more and more variables. So I have taken out the bottom part of this table, which shows the presence and absence of year dummies, time dummies, and so on. So in the first model we have country dummies, we do not have time dummies. In the second one we have time dummies. By including time dummies, the social sector expenditure loses significance. In the first model, it gives a negative sign, which is counterintuitive. But human capital appears with a highly significant positive signs in all the models. GDP per capita and the growth in GDP per capita change in actually first difference in GDP per capita only appears with a positive sign when we include overall variety in the model, or variety indices in the model. So it kind of shows that in a regression analysis for human development, economic diversification matters a lot. So when you include OV is overall variety, then the sign of GDP per capita here it becomes positive, and also the change in GDP per capita here it becomes positive and significant, which is intuitive. Human capital is also positive. Social sector expenditure and government effectiveness, they are insignificant in model 2 to model 7. They do not appear with the significant sign. One thing to show here is that this IMCF means infant mortality shortfall index. So this is infant mortality shortfall, meaning the higher the number is, lower the infant mortality is as compared to the poorest region. So human development index already has a component of GDP per capita. That's why putting human development on the left hand side does not make any sense. This is why we have used this IMSF variable. This is used by Suri et al. 2011 as well. So we have taken this proxy of human development from there. Overall variety has a positive and significant sign. Related and unrelated variety were not put together with overall variety because of the high correlation between them. But you can see that when you include an interaction of related variety here with human capital, it is not only significant but also increases the magnitude of this effect right here. So it goes on to show that human capital is not only important alone, it is also important for the absorption of knowledge, absorptive capacity, through the interaction of this variable with the related variety. And it also has an effect on how much related variety can affect human development. So higher absorptive capacity or higher human capital would suggest that related variety would have a stronger impact on human development. So these two indices alone also have a significant positive effect, but the magnitude of this impact is half of the overall variety. So jointly, if you look, of course we cannot sum them up together like this, but if you look at, if you could sum them up, if total is 0.3, is almost similar to overall variety. So overall variety has its own impact, but it does not matter on the interaction between human capital and overall variety here. So the hypothesis of absorptive capacity having an impact on the relationship between related variety and human development is only valid for related variety, not for other types of variety. But that's the main finding of this paper. So two takeaways from this: one, variety does matter for human development, positive effect. Number two, human capital only moderates the effect of related variety on human development, not for the other two types of variety. So this is the end of lecture 9. Next week I will upload the next lecture, lecture 10, with a different topic. If you want a copy of these papers that I have covered here, please do email me. Of course, I'm going to send these papers directly to my students, but if you are not one of the students in NUST, but if you want to read the papers that are being covered here, please comment under this video. I'll send it on your email. Of course, write your email address as well. I'll be happy to share these papers with you. Okay, thank you very much for watching, and see you with the next video.